Well, it's about that time. Hello, everybody. This is ZENcast Live. I'm Paul Pedron, Product Manager for ZENworks Service Desk and Hybrid Workspaces, part of the ZENworks portfolio. I am glad to be here. Thank you for joining us today. I did post the ZENcast presentation, today's ZENcast presentation with all the links to TIDs and stuff that you'll be seeing in our chat window, so feel free to log in on the chat. We're going to go ahead and do a couple of house cleaning things just to get you familiar if you're new to the area. But what is ZENcast Live? Well, today we're going to be covering ZPM Patch Management Advanced Feed. We got a special guest, Darrin VandenBos, with us today. And we're going to talk about some important dates that are there. But again, what is ZENcast Live? It's basically for ZENworks admins, the ZENworks community, or anybody interested in ZENworks. We go over different products within the portfolio and different demos throughout. And we meet the first and third Tuesday, 9 o'clock Mountain Time. I had a couple of times off because I had to take some time off, but I appreciate that patience. But we're back on the regular schedule now, first and third Tuesday. And again, if you need to know where all these recordings are, you can go out to this link here, and I got to move it over. Hang on a second. This happens every time because I got multiple screens. Let's go here. So you can go out to the open text support and training channel, and if you scroll down to the different playlists, you'll see IM&G, which has all the ZENcasts. And whichever one they pertain to, it'll also drop into those particular products as well. So you can always see the recordings if you miss the actual live. We are looking for some interaction. Thank you, Martin, for checking in. I hope audio is good for you. The housekeeping tips, log into the YouTube chat as Martin did. We can chat about what's going on. That way you can also subscribe to notifications and comments, likes, unlikes, and so forth. We really want to make sure we're hitting the target for these ZENcasts. Best viewing options is Auto 720p 60. You can get that with the gear that's in YouTube. The description in the posted video, once the recording goes out, which will be minutes after we end this presentation, the links will be that you see in the chat will also be in the description, as well as references to other PDFs. Let's go on. So we do have a few things that have been new, like collect patch detection logs. So again, if you download what I put in the chat, you'll get these particular links, this presentation with the links in a PDF. But how to collect patch detection logs is a new TID that's out there. There's RDBMS connection logging, if you wanted to enable that in ZCM. So all of these have different links to them. These are the TIDs that have been recently put together, and I just try to present them so you know the latest thing that's going on. So if you're right up to date or you're in that particular product and need some help and you see something, maybe you'll see the TID up here that helps correct that. A couple of other things, some of the bits is there's a discussion out on the forums about a distribute action. So distribute for a bundle, if you know Craig, if you have ZCM, you probably know Craig. He's in the backline support. He has this conversation going on, as well as some chat remote management changing the language. So be sure to go out to the forums. It's very important to do that. A couple of main tips is did you know that the 2020 U3 life cycle ends May 2024? Okay, so make sure you're aware of that. Make sure you stay up on top of it so that you don't lose any of that support. Give us a call if there's need to move. If you're having problems moving or something, be sure to check us out. I'm going to go ahead and put in ZENworks here, and we'll see this is a product support lifecycle, and we can see configuration management for 2020. We can see over here January. Okay, so be sure to stay on top of that, as well as the ZPM old patch feed ends, which Darrin's going to talk about today. in May. So there's an announcement out there that was done I think last November, about this. So be aware that that's available to you, so you can catch up on all the latest news. Um, a little bit of recap from last time. We did ZENworks software usage report. We did some asset management software usage. We looked at application usage, web application usage. My device hadn't collected all the information we needed in the short time that I was there because I was on the road still. And we'll probably cover this again. We covered it about 2 years ago also on how this usage works. So there's another recording out there, but this is we covered that last time, and there's also an asset management quick start guide. But for today, we're talking about ZENworks Patch Management Advanced Feed. I kind of shifted it on you. I thought I was going to go more into asset management today. Unfortunately, I couldn't do that. I'm still on the road. So we're going to go right into Zen Patch Management because there's some definite alerts that we need to make sure you're aware of. Some of the migration to the new advanced feed, what the new feed provides, why move, what's the deadline and issues and complications. And we do have none other than our product manager for ZPM, Darrin VandenBos. Darrin, are you there?
I am, Paul.
Hey,
Thanks.
Darrin. Welcome to ZENcast, and we look forward to
Thank
seeing
you.
what you have to show. I know we got some important dates going on with ZPM, so we wanted to make sure we got it out there as soon as possible. Um,
Perfect. Yep.
I'll go ahead and you can go ahead and share when you're ready, and we'll go ahead and see what you have for us today.
All right. You
Let me
seeing my screen?
just about let me move this over
Okay.
here, and we are good to go. All right,
Excellent.
Darrin, it's all yours. Thank you very much. I'll
All right.
relay any information. Oh, Kevin did ask what are or we are at 23.3 with no update available inside ZCM. Is that current? So ZCM 23.3 is the latest, right, Darrin?
No, 23.4 released in at the end of November, the last part of November. Um, so it's been out a couple weeks. I think what Kevin's probably referring to is Kevin, you have not seen the system update actually in the system updates list in ZENworks Control Center. So what we do is when we release, we always put the system updates, make it available for download from SLD, from the software and license download, and then usually about 3 weeks or so later, it's processed out through the system update channel. So, Kevin, you should be seeing that in ZCC pretty quickly here. I don't know the exact timing on that, but it should be shortly. All right. Anything else before we start? I start on other things, Paul. Am I still connected?
There, try again. I'm sorry, I cut you off just when you're
Okay.
saying we can see you at. I lost my mic, so that lost you. So we're back on.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. So did you was my response to
Yeah, apparently it's good.
Kevin?
Kevin says no worries, just curious. Thank you. I think you completed it
Yeah.
before I cut you out. All
Okay.
right,
Okay.
you're good.
Sounds good. Very good. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started with um, talking about Paul asked me on today to talk about what's happening with ZENworks patch management. A year ago, a little over a year ago, so last November of 2022, we came out with the advanced patch platform, or the advanced patch feed. You'll also hear it referred to, and that's replacing the old feed, which we refer to as the legacy patch feed. There are some important dates. If you have patch management and you haven't gone to the advanced feed, there's an important date coming up in the next 6 months that you really need to be watching and migrate before then. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But before we get started, I actually want to take a minute and just give a few other ZENworks suite updates. And by ZENworks suite, I'm referring to the products that are all under the ZENworks Control Center console, right? So asset management, configuration management, endpoint security management, full disk encryption, and patch management all together there in that one infrastructure of a zone. All right, so one announcement that we are making is that the release cadence is moving to a 6-month release cadence rather than a 3-month. We went to a 3-month cadence. There was a ZENworks 23.3 release in Q3 of last year and a ZENworks 23.4 release. We feel like that's a little aggressive for an on-prem product. Of course, at the beginning of last year, we merged with OpenText, and OpenText has a quarterly release cadence for the majority of their products, or for their products, the majority of which are cloud products, and we feel like so we tried some things around moving to that same cadence. We just feel like it's not the best release cadence for you as customers to try to keep up to date on things. We feel like the six-month cadence that was actually our goal before, but the last 2 releases had slipped out to a year or a little bit longer, both the update 2 and the update 3 releases. So we are moving to a 6-month cadence, and that means that we will release in Q2 and Q4 of each year, and there will not be any ZENworks, ZCM, ZAM, basically the suite products release in Q1 or Q3 of the year. So that's one thing we want to make you aware of. The next thing we want to make you aware of is that we've been talking with everyone about our journey to the cloud for the last couple of years, and we've been doing a lot of things to prepare for that. Well, today I want to announce to you that our first ZENworks public cloud, so that's a SaaS offering, is targeted for Q3 of this next year, so Q3 of 2024. And it will not be all ZENworks functionality. It will be select functionality from ZENworks configuration management, and then we'll build on that. And there's still a lot of questions around that we have to answer. So I'm just giving you kind of a heads up as to this is a new announcement on our roadmap. We will be providing more information, as well as some webinars about that in the first quarter of next year. So we're really excited that we've gotten to the point where we can do that.
One more thing before you go, Darrin.
Yeah.
First off, Kevin says thank you for the 6-month cadence. He also asks, does this mean private cloud K8s, K3s will be supported fairly soon too? And I don't know what the K8s is.
I think that's Kubernetes.
Okay. Oh, maybe that's KBS. Okay. Any input on that?
So what we're looking at initially, Kevin, is as I said, is public cloud. OpenText has public areas in both Google and Azure. I better get this. Don't quote me on that. It's Azure or AWS, and that's where we'll be, and that's where it will be hosted. It'll be multi-tenant, but right now, in terms of private cloud, the ability to spin it up yourself in in your own Azure or instance or whatever, that is not part of this first release. They're actually part of that has to do with the fact that we have some underlying components available in the OpenText container of the clouds that we need to from a just from the perspective of being able to operate. So yeah, we're not ready for this to be spun up in private clouds or individual user instances in private cloud that way, both in private or in their own user's own instance of public cloud.
And Kevin mentioned,
Customers. Yeah.
oh, yeah, he says, oh, okay, thank you. It's early days, but we are headed in the good
Yeah.
direction. So there's some
Yeah.
feedback for you.
Exactly. Perfect,
Perfect.
Kevin. Thank you. Thank you so much. ZENworks patch management. We're going to talk about this, so I'm not going to really spend much time on this one. But I just wanted to throw that out there as an important date, May 31st, 2024, and we'll talk more about that. We'll go into that in a lot more detail. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is an announcement that we posted on Friday in the community, and that we're currently getting a Z News link out, so you should see it in your management consoles in ZCC pretty quickly. And that is that we are ending support for Windows Server as a ZENworks primary server platform. We've discussed this and talked about this with customers for a while now. We are doing that. So what does that mean? Let me first talk about the why behind it. But as we've progressed through the years, Windows Server has really become the least used of the three platforms supported for ZENworks primary servers. That being the ZENworks appliance, SLES servers, and Windows Server. And this is primarily due to adoption of the ZENworks appliance, which has improved greatly over the years, and that we continue to improve. That it has the ZENworks appliance really has equivalent performance to Windows Server and SLES, with the advantage of having a much easier platform upgrade, right? So when you want to go from one, from Windows Server 2019 to 2022, it's not easy with the appliance. Obviously, I'm talking bare bone, but obviously with the appliance, we've made it so that it's a pretty easy, straightforward process to be able to upgrade under that and upgrade with that. And then there's no cost for the appliance, which helps you reduce the licensing costs for your overall server operating system farm. Another reason that we're doing this is that we are making server-side improvements based on Docker containers that are really only available in the Linux platforms. And you're going to love these improvements. They provide a simpler, more reliable ZENworks installation, upgrade, and system update experience, which obviously we all want, and we want to make it so that really it's just a matter of switching out some containers, and you're running pretty much with zero downtime and 100% reliability. And then we're also focusing on the Linux platforms to help us provide a faster implementation, enhancements, and greater reliability for you as customers. If we're focusing on those basically the Linux platforms, that helps us get things out to you more quickly in other areas of enhancements and stuff, and as well as it supports our ongoing journey to a private cloud offering. So those are the primary reasons behind it. We recently did a survey, had several hundred respondents to it, and based on that survey and stuff, we feel like this is a good time to be doing that. Now, if you are on Windows primary server, what does that mean? That means that ZENworks 23.4, which released in November, just last month, is the last release to support Windows Server. All future releases will not support Windows Server as a primary as a primary server. Now, I want to make sure that that's clear. Windows Server will still be supported as a managed device. So you can continue to manage your Windows servers and stuff. You just cannot install and run the ZENworks primary server on a Windows server.
And when you say managed device, you also mean satellite?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
As a satellite as well. So Windows Server will continue to be anything. Yeah. I mean, obviously the satellite is a specialized managed device.
Yes, right.
So
just wanted to clarify.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So we're not affecting anything on the satellites. That means that your Windows primary servers must be moved to SLES or ZENworks Appliance before updating to ZENworks 24.2. What will happen is if you try to update to ZENworks 24.2 and a Windows primary server is detected in your zone, we'll stop and tell you that you can't proceed until you've removed those Windows primary servers. There's a lot more information. I haven't gone over everything. There's a full announcement and an FAQ posted out in the community. Posted it Friday. It's called Into Support for Windows Server as ZENworks Primary Server Platform. You can search on that, or Paul will be posting this presentation here in a few minutes, so you'll be able to go and see the FAQs. And it talks about, for example, databases are not affected, managed device support is not affected, satellite server support is not affected. It gives you some recommendations on options of what you can move to. Talks about, it gives you some information if you want to move to the ZENworks appliance about where you can go to get migration instructions. We also will be over the next in the next couple months prior to we're shooting for this being released prior to the ZENworks 24.2 release. A migration tool that will automate those instructions that are in the documentation, those migration instructions. So an automated migration tool to go from Windows primary servers to a ZENworks appliance.
So there's a lot of documentation out there. I have it also, just for the audience, I have it also in my, this particular link in my PDF, as well as Darrin's PDF, which is posted in the chat. Also, there was a ZENcast done about a year ago that did the migration from Windows to Linux, but I know we'll have some more updated videos coming out soon, I'm sure. Thank you, Darrin.
Exactly. Thank you, Paul. All right, so that's it for the updates. So I guess, Paul, if there's no other questions on that, we'll talk about patch management.
I don't see any in the chat so far, so yeah, let's rock and roll.
Awesome. Okay, so as mentioned, hopefully this is not news to anyone that has ZENworks patch management. As Paul mentioned, when we released ZENworks 2020 Update 3 in November of 2022, we announced that ZENworks 2022 Update 3 included a new advanced patch platform, and we announced that the legacy patch platform would end in May of 2024, May 31st, 2024. So, and that's coming up soon. That's 6 months away. We've had a lot of customers that have migrated. We know that there are still some customers out there who have not migrated. So that's why we wanted to cover this today, in case you're in the camp of still using the legacy feed. So in this section, I'm going to cover what do we mean by next generation. We're calling this a next generation patch management. What do we mean by that? And why move? What are the reasons to move? Other than the fact that the legacy patch feed is ending in May. Obviously, that's a big reason. I want to tell you this, show you some and explain some of the great things that are in the new advanced feed, and then talk a little bit about version requirements in this section. So this I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on, but you know, over the years, we've innovated with patch management with significant enhancements over the years, starting with first integration into this ZENworks suite. Those of you that had patch management, it was a standalone product that had no integration when it first came out. We introduced rules-based policies to automatically select and apply patches. We introduced patching of click-to-run software applications like Office 365. So those applications that the content isn't made available by Microsoft except through their own download channel, right? And so we introduced that. We introduced dashboards to more easily determine device patch compliance and scan status, dashboards to identify and track vulnerability, one-click application of all patches required to remediate a known vulnerability. So over the years, we've done a lot of innovation, and are continuing to do a lot of innovation around patch management. So why are we calling this advanced patch platform the next generation? Well, that's because it really brings in some major new benefits in areas outside of just the patching capabilities. So for example, faster patch scanning. The new patch agent typically does a patch scan in under 20 seconds with the same thoroughness and effectiveness as the old patch agent, which could take up to 10 minutes to do a patch scan. What does that mean? That means that you can actually, if you want to, you can increase the number of patch scans that you're doing on a device. If you're doing them weekly, you could go to daily if you wanted to. It's really that fast and doesn't have the same CPU impact as the old patch agent. And if you do that, I mean, obviously what you get are more current stats in your showing in ZCC as to your patch status. That's just one benefit of a faster patch scanning. Doesn't mean you have to do more patch scans. Maybe what you're doing works for you fine right now. It'll just be faster and less and have less impact on your endpoint devices. The advanced patch platform has an active growing patch catalog with faster support for new applications and platforms. This is our go forward patch platform. It's the one that we're investing in. It's the one where new patches are coming in, and it has faster turnaround time and support than the legacy patch platform. Streaming of patch content on demand. So we introduced in update 3, we introduced the ability to request content on demand, meaning that a endpoint device could request a patch to be installed. If its content server, say it's connected to a satellite, if that satellite doesn't have the content in the past, that request would fail and the patch just wouldn't be installed. Now, with our on-demand content, what happens is that content server reaches up to that satellite reaches up to another satellite or primary that's in its upstream path and requests it, and that content is streamed back down if those upstream content servers have that. If not, it reaches the top level of a primary server that we call the on-demand content master, and if that one does not have the content, it goes out to the patch repository and downloads the content and then streams it back down to each of the servers in that path along the way, and they cache it so that they have it going forward as well. So really a much more efficient way of ensuring that patch content is distributed out. You can still pre-cache out to we call it pre-caching rather than replication now, but you can still pre-cache content out to your satellites if you want it to be there before it's even requested. But the whole idea behind on-demand obviously is that it's pulled down as needed, and if it's not there, it's fetched from upstream. The other thing that we've introduced is automatic cleanup of unused patch content from content servers. Because we're pulling things on demand that way, it's in a different repository, and if by default, if some patch content is not used for 30 days, it's automatically removed from the server to free up disk space. And then if for some reason after 30 days it's required, it's requested on demand again and pulled down. That 30 days is completely configurable. So if you want longer than that, you can do that. But this is intended to help preserve disk space on your content servers, specifically especially your satellite servers. If you're using satellite servers that may have smaller disk capacity, or may just be fuller because of bundles that you're distributing out, right? A combination of those things. And then the last thing is that we've decreased the amount of patch data stored in the ZENworks database. In the past, for every patch that was brought down through the subscription service, we built a bundle for it and for that content, and all of these things were kept in the database and referenced in the database. So there was just a lot of database usage. Now the on-demand content is not, that content is not, a bundle is not created for that. It's not tracked that way. It's done differently. So you still see your remediation bundles and your patch remediation bundles and your patch policy bundles and stuff like that. But the individual patch content pieces are not bundles that require references and all that stuff in the database. So we've been able to streamline the database a lot and make things better and faster, especially from the perspective of this has helped with some reporting, as well as just some other things that were impacted by a high number of entries in the database, and the constant turnover. Patches are always changing, right? So that's some of the major new benefits.
So to cap off, is that the last of that slide? Because I wanted to mention on this. Oh,
just the last thing is and we've done this all while maintaining the same patch administrative workflow. So when you migrate to the new feed, there are a few things that are a little bit different, and I'll mention those. But for the most part, your patch policies, the workflow for those stay the same. The way you do remediations, those all stay the same. The UI, the patch list, all of that, same administrative workflows, just big changes on the back end and the other things.
Sure. I know what I've done with the new patch management. The architecture modifications provides a higher level of reliability. And Kevin mentions in the chat that we've migrated to the latest patch management, and it's a nicer product. And not only that, I talked with a customer just yesterday morning who made the move, and it went really well. So
Excellent.
Building confidence. So that's great.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm going to pick it up a little bit because I think I want to get to the demo of the migration, and for those of you who haven't done it yet, and you'd like a little preview of that to feel more comfortable about that. But I wanted to point out what's really behind these next generation changes. The first thing is the new advanced patch platform, and by this we mean that this patch platform really it is, with the exception of the UI and the workflow in CCC, this includes a new patch feed. It includes a new patch agent on managed devices, and it includes a new server patch microservice. And what is that? That means that's the patch service. It runs on, well, let me back up a little. So the patch feed is the online repository that contains the patches. The patch agent is obviously the component on the managed device that detects and remediates missing patches, and the patch microservice handles all patch-related processing on the primary server. So each primary server now has a patch service running on it, where it processes data pushed back up to rolled up to the primary server from the endpoints. And then the second component behind this change is the on-demand streaming of patch content, which I talked about earlier as well. So why migrate to the next generation? Hopefully you see all the great benefits of the new advanced patch platform. Had a few testimonials so far on the call. That's great. But the second and really final reason, I would say, the ultimate pushing reason is that the legacy patch platform ends on May 31st, 2024. That means that after May 31st, 2024, you will no longer receive new patches through the legacy patch feed if you have not migrated. This just shows a little timeline. We announced on November 11th, 2022, we released update 3. We announced the new patch feed, the advanced patch platform. It's also available in 23.3 and 23.4 releases. So, and then we announced that the legacy patch platform feed is ending on May 31st of 2024. So what are the version requirements to migrate? All primary servers and satellites must be at least on ZENworks 2020 Update 3. So Update 3 is the first version to have the advanced patch platform in it. ZENworks 23.3 and ZENworks 23.4, the two releases after that, also have, everything has after Update 3 has the new advanced patch feed in it. Managed devices can be running pre-Update 3 ZENworks agents. Honestly, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, honestly, I would do everything that you can to update as many of your managed devices to at least the Update 3 agent as you can. There are some things that will not work quite right if you stay on pre-Update 3 agents. And then if you want to patch Mac OS devices, or if you're using the air gap solution, you need to be on at least ZENworks 23.3. In the Update 3 release, we didn't have support for Mac OS or the air gap solution, but that came out in 23.3. So that's available now in 23.3 and 23.4. And if you're not on 2020 Update 3 or newer, check out the version currency site for information. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the migration process, the migration prerequisites, and then we'll do a migration demonstration. So really, the migration process is initiated after the system update via a migration wizard. So if you're not on Update 3 yet, hopefully you're at least on Update 3. But what you'll notice is that we didn't push you over to the advanced feed just when you went to Update 3. We don't do that when you go to 23.3 or 23.4. You need to initiate the patch migration after the system update. And we did that so that system updates could be taken care of. You could make sure that your new version was stable, and then you could do the patch migration. So what happens during the migration shuts down the patch subscription service and its related services on the patch server. It removes all patch bundles from the database. So go in and clean up the database, and it removes all patch content from the content repository. So all of those patch bundles that have been replicated out to your primary servers and satellites, it removes that. It does that actually over a period of time. It doesn't do that instantly. It uses the content cleanup mechanism in place to delete that slowly over a period of time so as not to impact those satellites and primary servers with a lot of cleanup at the same time. The migration wizard allows you to retain all of your patch policies and patch configuration settings. That's the default, or you can choose to remove everything, and that would be like you're just starting from scratch with a completely new patch system. And then the final thing is it helps you configure the new patch system. So I'll show you that in a minute, but let's talk a little bit about the prerequisites before you go. The first thing you need to do is make sure you have a valid subscription key. The important thing to know is if your patch management subscription key is working now, as soon as when you go to the advanced patch platform, it will continue to work if you got it from the software license down portal. It will not work if you're using a key that was issued prior to the start of the SLD portal in March 2021. This really shouldn't be the case for any of you. This would only be the case if someone had bought like a multi-year subscription of 3 years, and even then it would be really close to the end of that. But a multi-year subscription purchase before March of 2021 that is not in SLD. The key point is if your patch management key, if you got it from SLD, and when you migrate, that new key will work just fine. The keys are the same for both feeds, for both platforms. And I'm not going to go over that part there. So the second thing is you need to make sure ZENworks servers and managed device meet the version requirements. We talked about the servers and satellites, and talked about the managed devices. As I said, you can continue to use older ZENworks 2020 and even 2017 agents on devices that meet. There's a few requirements that they need to have. They need to have .NET Framework 4.8 or newer installed. Not all Windows versions support .NET 4.8, so make sure that you refer to Microsoft's .NET Framework system requirements. There's an article here that helps you with that to make sure that your devices, but you need to have .NET Framework 4.8 installed on the machines. And we don't do that through the installer, right? So this is a prerequisite that you need to make sure that your devices are meeting. And that's because the new patch agent requires .NET Framework 4.8 or newer. And then it's an operating system that's supported by patching and by Update 3 patch management. And the supported, the document that's listed there, it's the supported patch content document. It lists the supported operating systems for patch management. I mentioned this, consider the following before using older ZENworks agents. The reboot prompt for patch deployments does not display on devices if you're using an older agent. That's part of the problem. So you really couldn't use a prompt for reboot. You'd have to do a silent reboot, automatic forced reboot, basically, or just let the reboot happen whenever the end user reboots. The prompt doesn't work, and that's just because of some changes that we had to make, and we looked for ways around that. But it would have required FTFs for the pre-update 3 agents, and then by that point you might as well just move to the update 3 agent, right? In ZENworks Control Center on the devices page, the installed by field will always show other rather than showing that it was installed by ZENworks. So just some inconveniences. The functionality still works, but there are some inconveniences, and we just recommend updating your ZENworks agents as soon as possible. Make sure that the patch server and on-demand content masters have firewall access. So with the new advanced patch platform, there are two really primary servers that you have to consider. There's the patch server, and the patch server is a primary server that you designate, like with the legacy feed, you designate as the patch server. It has a little bit different function in the advanced patch feed, in that it basically just takes care of kicks off maintenance tasks, daily maintenance tasks, which includes checking of the license key, cleaning up a few things in the database, and also doing some things around CVE and patches and stuff. So it's run on a daily schedule. It doesn't launch a subscription service anymore because the subscription service is not needed, because things are pulled down on demand, right? So one of the big differences between the new patch management and the old patch management is that what happens is that the patch catalog, and that's the list of all of the patches that are available for a device. That patch catalog is actually downloaded to each endpoint device, and the endpoint determines what patches are applicable to that device, and then it rolls those up. And at that point, those patches, it rolls that up to the primary servers. The patch service takes that information and populates the database with the patches that are applicable. So there's a couple things that happen. First of all, there's no subscription service, because that's what used to pull down patches and populate the database, and it populated the database even with patches that you might not need. Now what happens is that you're only seeing patches that are applicable to devices in your zone, because that information is rolled up from the actual endpoints who do the evaluation, and then the information is added by the patch service into ZCC at that point. So the patch server does maintenance, but it doesn't do anything with subscription anymore. The on-demand content master I mentioned before, it must be able to contact the patch repository and the vendor sites to download patch content. The on-demand content master is that primary server. It can be the patch server, it can be a different server, but it's the one that goes out and retrieves content from the external site. You can have one, you can have multiple, depending on your needs, right? Which is also different than the legacy patch feed. You only had the patch server was the only device that was downloading. It was only primary server that was downloading content. But now you can have multiple on-demand content masters, which can help if you have a distributed, network and want to have content pulled down by different patch servers. So what does that mean? If you notice, primary server 1 is a patch server and OCM, it means that this just shows what you need to have firewall access to for the license verification, and then there's various URLs. We actually have a URL list posted out on the documentation site. This shows it on the update 3 site, but it's also on the 23.3 and the 23.4 site that shows what firewall exceptions you need to have to reach out to different vendor sites for the content. So you just need to make sure that the patch server and any OCM have the correct firewall access. And then this slide we won't go over, but it tells you where that, if you have if you're using a proxy server, this tells you how you configure where you configure the proxy server used by the patch server, as well as the proxy server used by the on-demand content masters, and they're different locations for some valid reasons. You also need to make sure to remove links from bundles outside the ZPM folder to patch bundles inside the ZPM folder. So The patch wizard doesn't know about patch bundles outside of the ZPM folder that are referencing bundles inside the ZPM folder. So you need to make sure if there's anything like that, that those are done. They will fail. It will fail. It does know about them because it can see that it's being referenced, but we don't want to manually clean that up because we don't want to just be removing your patch bundles and stuff. This scenario will only exist if you or another administrator has created those bundles. Patch management doesn't create anything outside of the ZPM folder on its own. And you can delete the referencing bundle, or you can remove the link to the bundle instead of inside the ZPM folder. If you don't know, if you have the scenario, the migration wizard will tell you that it's happening. Right, and then immediately before you start the migration, back up the ZENworks database, verify that all primary servers are up and running, stop ZENworks reporting from generating reports from the ZENworks or the Vertica databases, stop any third-party processes. This just basically means that the data, the patch data, can't be being processed in these databases at the time of the migration by anything other than migration wizard. Disable the CVE subscription as well, so that nothing is happening there. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to bounce over and I'm just going to walk through the migration.
And Darrin, just a note, as you go through this, we are recording, so if you have time to go long, feel free to include all the information you need to for.
Okay. Well, I hate to keep people long, but there is a lot of information,
Yes.
and we won't even get through everything today. So at the end, I'll show you where you can get more information. Okay.
Just wanted to give you the liberty
stuff.
of the extra time.
Okay, great. So here I am in an update 3 zone, and all I'm really showing here is that I have two primary servers, and then we'll go down, and I have here. Let's see here, 5 managed devices. One of which that top one is a satellite server. So this is the system that will migrate here. If you look, you can see on the patches page, I have patches that have been downloaded. A lot of that have not been installed, not patched. If we showed the patches list, there would be some that would be installed. But anyhow, the patches list is populated. The same is true if you go and we look at the patch dashboard. You'll see that you'll see the patch subscription status. Nothing is running right now, but verification has happened, and you can see that the other dashlets have information. You'll see that there's a couple of patch trackers. A note about patch trackers: because the migration deletes all of the patches and the new patches that come in have different names, you will need to recreate any patch trackers that you have. The other dashlets will repopulate automatically, but because the patch tracker is actually created by selecting specific patches, when those are deleted, the patch tracker dashlets that you have obviously show no information. So anything you want to track, you'll need to create new patch trackers that way. Looking at the security dashboard, you see that the CV's dashlets are populated. And there's also a couple CV trackers. Now those are different than the patch trackers. The CV trackers, once you migrate and you start getting data back in, those will come back up populated again because they're based off of CVE numbers and then associated with the patches through some processing. So those will automatically come back correctly for you. So it's really just the patch tracker dashlets, if you have those, that you'll need to do something about. And potentially any custom dashlets that you've done as well. So we have the dashlets. You can see in the bundles directory, this is the ZPM bundle. We have DAU directory, there's the policy directory, the patch agents, there's this feature update to Windows 10 version there. So just showing you that we have a full system here. So now when you go to migrate, what you do is you come in and go into the patch service subscription settings. And when you go into the patch service subscription settings, you'll see this Migrate ZENworks Patch Management button under Patch Subscription Service Settings. You click that, and the first thing it does is it brings up a migration prerequisites, and it goes over some of the prerequisites that we talked about before. You click next on that, and it explains the migration process. First, we're going to clean up the database. Then and at the same time, we're actually going to clean up the patch content. Again, that may take some time, and so that it doesn't impact your system performance. It's not just done in all in 10 seconds or anything. It may actually take several days if you have a lot of patch content. And then we're going to configure the new patch system. Okay, so here I have a bundle. I started the migration wizard, and I had a bundle with a reference to a patch bundle. That's what I actually named the bundle with reference to patch bundle. So the migration wizard tells me that I need to go get rid of that before I can continue. So if I do that, I close, I go over, I can see that it's a bundle with reference to patch bundle. I go in and I can see that it's referencing, and this is one I just made for as an example. It's referencing a DAU that's in the bundle that's in the ZPM folder. So I could either get rid of this action, or in my case, I'm just going to delete the whole bundle and get rid of it. I can go back and start the patch migration wizard, and this time it goes past that and gets me to select database cleanup option. Now this is where you have the choice of keeping the default. Do you want to retain your patch policies and configuration settings, or do you want to remove everything? Obviously, if you are happy with your patch policies and your configuration settings, by all means retain those, right? It will be less configuration that you have to do after you move to the advanced patch feed. If you're feeling like, oh, I really want to do a patch reset and start over with some of this stuff and build things up, you can remove all your patch data if you want. But the default is to retain your patch policies. So then what happens is that the migration starts. You'll see this screen, and it says database cleanup is in progress, and the content cleanup is in progress, and the new patch configuration has not started yet. So what'll happen is that'll run for a little bit, and really it doesn't take very long to clean up the database, a few minutes. And what happens is that once the database cleanup is completed, you'll see that it changed, both of the check marks changed from orange to green, even the one on content cleanup, and it shows that it's still in progress, but the green check mark means that you can continue on. The content cleanup will continue in the background, and it doesn't have to be completed before you can configure the new system and start using your new advanced patch platform. So at that point, you click Start Configuration, and what that does is it reconfigures ZCC to remove all of the old setting pages that are no longer needed, and provide the new setting pages. And then one of the things that it also asks you to do, and this is important, so it asks you whether this is a production zone or a non-production zone. And really, we're just using this for telemetry purposes, in terms of it doesn't whether you choose production or non-production does not affect the functionality in your zone at all. We would just ask that if it's a lab, if this is a lab system that you're using, for example, to go through testing on and to test the migration and stuff like that, to choose non-production. If it's your production system, then go ahead and choose production. But it does that. It tells you that the configuration is completed. Then you can continue to the getting started page. And whoops, let me go back. Well, it'll continue to getting started page. This just shows if you go to the patches page, it'll show that patch management is not configured. That's because the new system is not configured, and patch dashboards are not. You can see the patch dashboards are all empty. The patch trackers, as I said, the security dashboards are the same way. So all of the data has been cleared out, right? So at this point we go to, and if you look at the ZPM folder, you'll see that the only folder in there at this point is the policy folder. That's because we retain the policies, so those policy bundles are still in there. So that's essentially what your system will look like after you go through the cleanup of the ZENworks databases and then migrate to the or change the configuration of ZCC. When you go into ZCC, where you want to go is to the getting started mitigating vulnerabilities. That's the patch management getting started page. And at the end of that, I kind of showed you the patches page and stuff like that, but the migration wizard actually pops you right over to this so that you know where to go. You'll see that the patch management is already activated. That's because I had an active license key in during the migration, and we don't remove the license key. So your patch management is still activated in your zone. But what you need to do is you need to start the patch services. I mentioned that those are the patch microservices that now run on each primary server to do the processing of patch data. That used to be done by the ZENworks loader, but now to provide more of a cloud-friendly and container ready architecture, we have microservices that we have microservices that are more specialized to do specific things. So we now have a patch microservice to do that. So you have to start the patch microservice. We'll go in and really it's just clicking. It goes in, it starts, it's in progress, and then when it completes, then you're able to select your patch server, right? So we'll go in and we'll click that button and come into patch server, and really all you have to do is designate which primary server is going to be your patch server, and that may be the same patch primary server that you had as your patch server before. Again, the patch server performs patch-related maintenance tasks for the zone, and I mentioned that before. That includes verifying the patch license. If a proxy service is required for license verification, it talks about some of the prerequisites that I said. You need to set up the proxy server correctly. The other thing that the ZENworks primary server does is, if you don't already have an on-demand content master configured in your zone, which if you're using, for example, if you're using endpoint security anti-malware, you might already have an on-demand content master. But if you don't, then what it does is it automatically sets the patch server as an on-demand content master. That's so that your system will work after you get done configuring the patch server. Once you've done this and selected the patch server and stuff, if you have other on-demand content masters that you want, other primary servers that you want to function as on-demand content masters, or if you don't want the patch server to be an on-demand content master, all you have to do is go into configuration server hierarchy, and you can switch the designations there, right? So you can set a different primary server as an on-demand content master, either as an additional one or a replacement for the patch server. You can remove the patch server as an on-demand content master. But by default, if you don't have one in your system, the patch server will be made one. Then you can also set the maintenance schedule. By default, the maintenance schedule will happen at 1 a.m. And again, we talk a little bit about what it does there. It rebuilds the patch scan files. That's basically the DAU bundles, disables outdated patches, generates email notifications, and some things like that. You can also run patch maintenance at any time by using the Run Maintenance Now button, which is not available at this point, but once you click Apply on the bottom of the screen, let me just see here. Let's go and run through this. If it runs down here, once you click Apply at the bottom of the screen or OK, it becomes available. We'll just go back in. I clicked OK, so now you can go back in and see that the patch service has successfully run. It's not wanting to stay away. Let's try that. It's successfully run, and the patch maintenance is run. So this is just showing that the license key was still in there. You can verify the license at any time if you need to. So that's setting up the patch server. The CV subscription is already configured, but as part of the prerequisites, you should have disabled that. So this just shows going back in and enabling the patch subscription service. Right, so that once that's done, you can then go to your patch policies. What happens during the migration is that the patch policies are disabled during the migration. And why do we do that? Well, that's because there are a few things that you need to verify in your policies before starting to use them again. So if you look at verify policies and re-enable, what happens is that, where did I go? Oh, here we go. That's what I want. If you look at the patch policies, these were my patch policies. They're all disabled now. If I go into one and go to the rules page, you'll see that this was a patch policy for Windows 11, not the previews, but any Windows 11 patch. You'll see that there's this warning up here. It says one of the patch policy rules has a non-existing vendor. That's because in the advanced patch feed, some of the patch vendor names are different. For example, Microsoft Corp in the legacy patch feed is now just Microsoft in the advanced patch feed. Well, what that means is that you have to go into your patch policy, and it shows that it on the vendor it does not exist anymore. So all you have to do is drop down and choose Microsoft from the list and replace that, and click apply, and in that case your patch policy is ready to go. Another thing that's changed somewhat is the patch naming convention. I'm not going to go into that, but there's in the handout or the presentation that you get, there's a section on some ideas or some strategies to help you make sure that you understand the patch naming convention and are getting what you want in your patch policies. So we'll see that the Windows 11 now, there's a patch that shows up, and you can get your patch policies working again. We'll leave it at that. So that essentially is the migration process. Again, first it's cleanup of the old system, and then it's configuration of the new system. And once you have go through the migration and get things started, then one of the important things to note is that you will not see any patches in your patches list until your endpoint devices, until your managed devices run a scan. Because as I mentioned earlier, there's no longer a subscription service that brings down on the patch server that brings down patches from the content repository and populates the database. Instead, the patch catalog is brought down to the endpoints during the scan. They see what patches are applicable, which ones are needed, which patches have been applied. They roll that information back up. It's processed by a primary server patch service and added to the database. And then at that point, once you have devices reporting back their applicable patches and basically their patch, not patch status, then you start to see data in your patches list, and that's when you could build out your policies, adjust your policies, and start patching devices. So over the last year, as we've done this, we've had a few customers say, "Hey, I'm not getting any patches." Well, you need to run a patch scan. So check your patch scan schedule. You can wait for your regularly scheduled patch scan, or you can kick off a manual patch scan using quick tasks or whatever you want to be able to get that patch data rolled back up. I talked a little bit about what some of the differences with the patch platform that affects patch policies. The vendor name, I mentioned that. Patch names have changed, particularly in Microsoft Windows operating system patches, which now use bulletin title names. So before this this patch here would have been like cumulative update for Windows Windows 10 20H2. Now the patch name title it includes the KB article and the build OS, which means that in a patch policy, you need to use OS builds numbers in the patch names rather than, for example, Windows 10 20H2. It's a little bit different paradigm. So you need to know things around the build numbers and some stuff like that.
So Darrin, a
Yeah.
quick mention in the chat from
Uh-huh.
Kevin. He says this is an important point that Darrin is making. Give patch management time to sync everything up. Patch scan plus content download. Several days is
Yep.
reasonable for them. It was reasonable.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
and then Martin mentioned, so a question. So after patch management, we have to check all patch policy content results because of vendor product name changes.
After the migration, your patch policies are disabled, right? So they won't even be applied and executed on schedule, any schedule that you have, because they've been disabled, right? So you need to go in and let me see if I go back here. So what you need to do is go in and check the rules. In this one, this was a Windows 11 one, and it wasn't. I had to change the Microsoft Corp to Microsoft, which was pointed out by the vendor. We can tell if it's changed and made. It says one of the patch policy rules. But the other thing that you need to, if you've used patch name, you need to go in and look. Really, patch name and vendor are two of the most commonly used criteria, filters. The vendor, we can tell if the vendor name has changed and it doesn't match anything anymore. You just go in and you pick the new vendor from the list. Of course, this is after you've done scans on your endpoints. If you haven't done any scans on your endpoints and you come in and try to change the vendor, there won't be any vendors in the list because nothing has been reported back up to the database yet. But yes, you need to come in and make sure the vendor is correct, and then you need to look at your patch names. So, for example, if you had the patch name contains Windows 11 cumulative update, that will not be found anymore because the patch names now that we get in now use the security bulletin and they use the OS build numbers instead. So that's kind of what I kind of skipped over it a little bit.
Martin said he understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of skipped over it a little bit here, but you can see on this policy, I had to recreate and put in use an and to say patch name contains Windows 11. Well, actually, let me continue a little bit more because it deletes some of the top stuff. I've rebuilt the bottom and then deleted the top. So patch name contains Windows 11 or 2200 or 22621. Those are OS build names for build numbers for Windows 11. So you have to get that in there, and then just kind of rebuild things a little bit that way.
Yeah, and Kevin made a good point. He said we used the opportunity to clean up our patch policies. We had a lot of old legacy policies that needed to go or be updated anyway. So this was a good
Yeah.
opportunity for them.
Yeah. Well,
And
good.
I think in your video too, it said Microsoft Corp does not exist. So it actually detected there was a title there that wasn't
Right.
available.
Right.
So
Exactly. And we can do that on the vendors, right? We can
sure.
detect that there's an old name that's no longer for which there's no patches available, right? I wanted to show this. So this is the 23.4 site, but it's also on the 23.3 as well as the update 3. But if you go to patch management, there's a few things that you'll want to be aware of. First of all is this patch management video series. A lot of what I talked about today is done in these videos. As a matter of fact, actually all of it is, and it's done at a more reasonable pace, I think. So you can go in and review those. And it also I took you through migrating to the advanced patch platform. There's also sections on enabling native update channel patches and software installers. So by default, when you go to the advanced patch feed, software installers are not by default rolled up, right? And that's because software installers take a lot of room in the database, and not all customers want software installers. Software installers really aren't patches, right? They really are application bundles that we've just offered in the past, and some customers like them and some customers don't. If you like them, you need to actually use a system variable to enable that, and that is contained in the presentation that Paul will post for this ZENcast, but it's also out here in this video 4 that talks about it. And then there's also a video about managing patch content. So as I mentioned, the on-demand content is used. So this talks a little bit about pre-caching on-demand content if you want to do that. It also talks about pre-fetching patch content, which pre-caching is like replication. It's like pushing the content out from a primary server to a satellite or to another primary server. Pre-fetching is actually having the on-demand content master go out to the repository and pull the content into your system before it's been requested, right? So let's say that you want to pre-cache. The first thing you would want to do is pre-fetch the content to a primary server so that you could then pre-cache, right? So it all talks about managing your patch content. I would recommend that you go through those. The other couple things out here are there's the content report for the advanced patch feed. If you go to that, it talks about supported operating system support, application support. This is a document that you want to have for your reference. This is for the old patch feed, the same report. There's the patch content SLA in terms of how timeframes for responding to incidences. And then this is the patch content URL exception list that I talked about before. And it's a Excel spreadsheet that you can download and look at the firewall exceptions that you need to have to get certain types of applications from specific vendors, right? So.
Beautiful.
All right, Paul, I think I've gone way over time. Hopefully this was helpful to, if you haven't if you have not migrated to the Advanced Patch Feed, again, I would just recommend that you, if you haven't, that you do this as soon as possible.
Stress
And
on the
not
May end date. Yeah,
not wait until May,
yeah,
right? Just because we want to make sure that you have time to get up and running and then are successful. As I said, we're we've had good experiences thus far on the Advanced Patch Feed patch platform. There are there are always little things that come up, and some of them are environment specific. We've run into some things that have been environment specific that have needed to be taken care of, and have support brought in, and engineering to help resolve some issues. But those are we had more of those at the beginning, right after update 3 released. We're seeing lots of really good results now, so we feel good about the migration and stuff. But if something does go wrong, doing it a little bit earlier than May gives a little bit more time to respond and get that going for you.
absolutely. No, Darren, this explanation has been golden, and gives great details and visuals to what to expect during the migration to the new patch feed. I know there's some support videos for the migration. You did a great job on those 5 videos. They're a very good resource. I use them myself, and both, as Darren said, in the 2 links that I put in the chat, you can download to get that information for all the information that you've seen here today. So Darren, thank you very much for coming aboard and doing this. It's definitely needed. We want to make sure we hit that time frame of May. So let's but this really gives them an idea, and we've had some good testimonials as well. So that's very helpful. So
Yeah,
thank
you're welcome, Paul. Thank
thank
you,
you.
and thank you everyone for attending, and hope this was helpful. And thanks, Paul, for these ZENcasts. They're awesome.
Very much so.
So
Yeah, I'll go ahead and finish up with some closing slides, but thank you, Darren. I appreciate that. So there you have it. Let's get that done by before May so that we get things rolling. Again, if you have any issues, again in my slides I have the links to those videos as well as email us at zen@opentext.com. It's very much we'll respond to that and be able to give you what you need in order to get you comfortable and moving forward with that. Again, we're going to have a brief look. We're going to close the year off with the ZENcast lives with a brief look at 2024 with ZENworks and where we're going, what's going on, and things to expect, all the exciting new things that are coming up in this next year. In January, we're going to do ZSD 24.1 because we'll have that release just around the corner from when we do this ZENcast. So we still have a couple of one ZENcast left for the year. We'll go out on a light note and have some information there. These are the ZENworks versions, ZCM 23.4 actually, because it was released just November. So, and then ZRS 8.12, ZSD 23.4, and Hybrid Workspaces 23.6. And the links in my PDF are there for any of that information as well if you needed to get to those documentations. And then the futures 24.1 will be released in January. 23.4 was released in November. And then Hybrid Workspaces is going to be released in January, another version of that. There is a couple of lookbooks. So if you haven't gone to the community, make sure you check out the lookbook. Lookbooks are quite resourceful for you or anybody that wants to know about it. They have the what's news, upgrade demonstrations. They have version comparison charts. Um, there's just a lot of information out here that will help you understand what you need to look for in the particular product. And there's one for ZSD, there's one for ZENworks, and then there's one for hybrid workspaces as well. If you're not familiar with any of the products, this really gets you familiar with the product in showing you some white papers and some videos on demonstrations and so forth. So be aware that those are there. We do have monthly live casts, which is Filer, GroupWise, Enterprise Messaging, ZENworks, and OES and iPrint. I stress that you need to re-register if you haven't already because they've moved from
go to meeting to WebEx. So to get those notifications that these webinars are happening uh, by email, they'll automatically send these to you if you register. So be aware that we moved over to WebEx and you do have to re-register for these. So if you have any of these products, the first Thursday, second Thursday, third or fourth Thursdays, we have different webinars going on. Okay. Um, and then we just had the Fusion Tour global webinar is coming up in February timeframe, and we're going to be talking about ZENworks at that time too. All your webinar schedules are here, as well as recordings for the webinars. And then, of course, the next ZENcast will be a brief look at 2024 with ZENworks. And I don't have anything else besides that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We've covered everything, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks, and we'll see what's going on the next year. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.